Okay, so today's lesson, guys, is identifying the conics. And I'm gonna give you a few details, and we're gonna work 4 problems, so it's very short and easy today. And guys, we've looked at problems, for example, and I'm just gonna make this problem up. If I gave you something like 4x squared plus 2y squared plus 3x minus 5y plus 18 equals 0, okay? Our directions would say, put this in standard form of a, and it would tell you what it wanted, correct? Okay, now, in my opinion, the things that we've looked at in the past, for example, we've looked at circles, right? And they might look something like this, okay, to where it doesn't equal 1 in a circle, remember? Okay, we've had ellipses, for example, maybe something like this. They do equal 1. Then we studied hyperbolas. The difference between an ellipse and a hyperbola is the sign in the middle. So maybe you might see something like this. Still equals 1. The last thing we studied were parabolas. Those are easy. Okay, those are the 4 different conics that we talked about. Now, what's cool about a conic in this form right here is there's a rule that you can look at that's going to tell you what shape it is without even having to transform it into here. And what that will do is just by looking at it, that will help you. In other words, okay, when I get it down as far as I can, do I need it to equal 1, like these two, so I need to divide by whatever's over there? Or do I need it to equal a radius, right? So it doesn't need to equal 1. It helps me decide what to do later on in the problem. And this is how you know. Now, the other thing is they consider the coefficients of all these. They're like alphabet soup here. This is A, this is B, this is considered C, D, and E. All right, like half the alphabet in order to fit. So what it'll tell you is that if you have ax squared plus by squared plus cx plus dy plus e equals 0, like I said, it's like alphabet soup, okay? And the rule is this, right? Just by looking at it, okay, if A and B are equal, in other words, if the number in front of x squared and the number in front of y squared are equivalent to each other, what shape do you think I have? May I want to guess? A circle, okay? It's literally that easy. If A and B are the same, it's going to look like this. Look, they're both 1 here, aren't they? Okay? So that's how you know that that's going to create a circle. Now, what happens if A and B are positive and different? What do you think it's going to create? If A and B are positive and different, what are we going to have, do you think? An ellipse. Very good. Okay. What about then if A and B, no, we need or there. We need an A or B. A or B is negative. What's it going to give me if A or B are negative, guys? Right. It's a hyperbola. And last but not least, what if A or B is 0? In other words, what if they aren't there? Okay, in other words, that's the number in front of x squared and y squared. So if the number in front of x squared was 0, there wouldn't be an x squared, right? What happens when there's no x squared? What shape am I going to have when I don't have an x squared or I don't have a y squared? We studied that last. What would it be? A parabola, okay? So if A or B, these are ors, is 0, then like you guys just said, we have a parabola. Okay? Now then, let's try a couple. We're going to do 4 problems. So here's number 1. If I give you x squared plus 25y squared plus 8x plus 50y plus 16 equals 0. So there's your problem. Remember, you can tell what the shape is of the conic, or what kind of conic it is, I'm sorry, just by looking at it actually in this form. Okay? All you have to ask yourself is what's A, in other words, the number in front of x squared, and what's B, the number in front of y squared. So A in this case would be right here in front of x squared, which is what value? What value is A, guys? 1. And then B, what value is B? The number in front of y squared is, okay, so they're both positive and they're different. What do you think it's gonna be? An ellipse, right? You're gonna go 1 one direction and 5 the other direction. They're not the same, you're not creating a circle, okay? So it would be an ellipse. So that's the first question that it's gonna ask us. It's gonna ask us what's the shape. And then sometimes the next question is gonna ask us to put it in what? Standard form. So let's go ahead and do that next, okay? So we'll put it in standard form now by grouping the x's together. So that gives me x squared plus 8x. Now group my y's together, 25y squared plus 50y, and move your 16 over. You're gonna complete the square. Okay, before you can do that, you have to factor 25 out of here. So you end up with x squared plus 8x. I've got to take the 25 out. Okay, now half of 8 is 4, so plus 16 on both sides. Half of 2 is 1, but it's 25 times 1, so plus 25. Complete the square, x plus 4 squared plus 25 times y plus 1 squared equals 25. Now knowing what it is makes a difference. Do I need it to end in 25 or do I need it to end in 1? We know it's an ellipse, so it has to end in what? It has to equal 1, so we have to divide everything by 25. That's why it's tricky, because you've got to know the next step. So then this just becomes x plus 4 squared over 25 plus y plus 1 squared over 1 equals 1. And there's your ellipse. Okay, let's do number 2. Alright, we've got x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 12y plus 36 equals 0. Alright, on the right, I want you to tell me what kind of conic this is. So tell me what A is and what B is, and what you think that it would become. What conic is it? What's A? A 1, and B is also 1. Okay? A is the number in front of x squared, so A is 1. B is the number in front of y squared, so B is 1. When A and B are positive and they're the same, what shape is it going to be? It's a circle. So let's now put it in standard form. So you've got x squared minus 6x plus y squared minus 12y, and move your 36 over. Half of 6 is 3, so plus 9 on both sides. Half of 12 is 6, so plus 36 on both sides. The 36 is canceled, so now you're left with x minus 3 squared. That's a minus 3, guys. Careful. Plus y minus 6 squared equals 9. Now, our next step is to typically divide everything by 9. Would that be right? No. It's a circle, right? It's okay to look just like that. This would be the center, and this would be how much you move in every direction. Okay, number 3. We're getting close. We got 2 more, 3 and 4. 9x squared minus 4y squared plus 90x plus 32y plus 197 equals 0. Okay, you're going to define A and B. A is in front of x squared, so A is what value, guys? 9. B is in front of y squared, so B would have what value? Negative 4. So one's positive, one's negative. What is it going to be? The hyperbola. Good job. Now put it in standard form. Now, guys, if you want, you can look at the x's right now. What can you pull out of x's to save us a step here? Yeah, and that'll save you a whole step. You can pull a 9 out and just write it just like that. X squared plus 10x, if you would rather. Okay, now look at the y's. What are you going to take out? We take out the y's here. Yeah, negative 4, and that would save you a whole step. That would give you y squared minus 8y, watch your minus, and move the 197 over. You can do it that way if you want, instead of write it in factor. Either way. Now complete the square. Half of 10 is 5, so plus 25. But you really want 25 times 9, which is 225 on the right side. Half of 8 is 4, so you want plus 16 there. But 16 times negative 4 is actually negative 64. So let's factor. 9 times x plus 5 squared minus 4 times y minus 4 squared equals, and you have to add these in your calculator, all three. What do you end up with? Negative 36? Okay, then you're going to look back over here. Okay, it's a hyperbola. So I need it to equal what? 1. Don't automatically divide, because if it's a circle, then you leave it alone, right? So divide by negative 36, which actually ends up requires you to rotate. Because look, guys, that means this fraction is negative now, and this y fraction is positive. So when you write your final answer, the y has to be moved to the front. So you end up with y minus 4 squared over 9 minus x plus 5 over 4 equals 1. Okay, and one last problem. X equals negative 2y squared minus 16y minus 33. I think this one's almost, I mean, you just know what it is. It looks different than all the rest of them, doesn't it? What shape is this just by glancing at it? A what? A parabola. The other thing that you'll notice, remember, is there an x squared at all? No, so what's a? Right, so a in this case is 0. And b is negative 2. And remember, in the rules I gave you in the beginning, if there is no x squared or y squared, in other words, if 0 belongs to a or b, then it's the shape of a parabola. Okay, now this is our newest lesson, so let's put this in the shape of, let's put this in standard form. You're gonna group the y's together, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the 2 out at the same time. So I'm gonna say x equals, and factor out a -2 to give me y squared plus 8y minus 33. I'm gonna complete the square. So half of 8 is 4, 4 squared would be plus 16. But I really got 16 times -2. So I'm actually subtracting 32 from the right side. So you have to subtract 32 from the left. So my next line would look like this. X minus 32, -2y plus 4. Okay, but are you allowed to leave the minus 32 over here? No, so you add 32 to both sides. So your final answer then would be -2y plus 4 squared minus 1. Guys, what's the center? I'm sorry, this isn't how the center. What's the vertex of this? Be careful. -1, 4. Just to ask, this vertex is -1, 4, right? You're out of order? Oh, I'm sorry. -1, -4, thank you. I'm taking the opposite of this. So the vertex is -1, -4. I didn't ask you that, I was just checking to make sure you knew it. Okay, you got it? Or you can work on your assignment now.